We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back. We have a very exciting episode of Wake Up Aligned for you today. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry. And before we get too far into this, I just want to remind everyone, we would love to hear your feedback, and you can send your feedback to us through mailbag@amcfamily.com. And send your questions, send your comments. We get a lot of feedback in person at our summit weekends, but would love to hear feedback through that mailbag. So mailbag@amcfamily.com is how you can reach out to us. I'm joined today by my good friend, Dr. Tara Horrall. Would you like to say hi to everybody, Dr. Tara?
Hey.
Nicely done. You recently had a class at one of our summits, and in that class, you spoke about expectations.
Indeed.
And we are making that expectations our monthly focus. For you listeners who are not part of our group, we have a monthly focus that we roll out for everybody, in addition to the other things that we're doing with our mentorship and our weekly detail points and things like that, with just a big picture concept for someone to work on for the month. And expectations is our monthly focus coming up for July, I believe it is.
Awesome.
Nice. Very good. So I would like to have a conversation with you about expectations, since you did this class.
What are your expectations for this conversation?
Well, my expectations is that you will do as good a job today as you did in that class, because I sat in that class and I thought you made some very, very good points.
Awesome. Well, I'll try to live up to those expectations.
Let's pretend like the people who are listening obviously know what expectations are. They know like a definition of expectation, a working definition, but they don't understand the impact of expectations in their life. How would you take somebody who is like brand new to this type of work and express to them how important expectations are?
Well, first, I think it's important that, like we talked about, that they realize that what society says about expectations nowadays is a little off point, right? Your expectations of what you get from any conversation, any, for example, the summit that we have going on, right? Mm-hmm. Your expectations of what you're going to take away from that, mm-hmm. Your expectations with the patient as far as results and what that patient's going to do and how that relationship's going to go and how they're going to follow through. And then really your expectations in relationships outside of the office and with your staff, and really just your expectations of the way life is going to go are your lens piece through which you see everything, mm-hmm. and which every communication and every action of other people and the things that every circumstance are really filtered through. And then you confirm or deny, right, whether what you're expecting is happening based on these pieces that are coming at you from the world, from patients, from staff, and so on. So really, your expectations govern how you perceive the rest of the world. And I'd say really your expectations guide the way your experience goes altogether, right? I mean, Dr. Owen, our mentor, would always tell you that if you have low expectations, mm-hmm. then you get what kind of results?
No result.
That's right. No results. If you have medium expectations, you'd get
low results.
And if you have high expectations, then
high result.
You get high results.
That's what we were taught. Yeah.
Yep. And so, like I was saying, whenever we started, the problem is that society, when I was looking up quotes for my talk, I found that the top quotes on expectations are basically on how to remove your expectations or lower them to as low as possible so that you could be happy. But I think that lack of happiness due to unmet expectations comes from people really, I mean, we're in an age where the communication of expectations that we have of relationships and other people and really communication altogether, right, is at an all-time low. And so instead of learning how to communicate those expectations, what the world is saying is, no, just take them down to the point where you don't have any, and that'll keep you from being frustrated and irritated and really not getting what you want in life. Because if you don't want anything, then you don't have to worry whenever you get just exactly what you were expecting.
I doubt that any great thing that has come about through lowering one's expectations. You know, whether it's a social struggle, like for equality or something like that. You know, do you just tell a group, hey, if you want to be happy, just don't expect to be equal.
Right.
Just lower those expectations.
It's wacky, isn't it?
It is kind of crazy to think about, because we all have that. I think we all have that little inner voice inside of us that constantly urges us on to our potential and outside of our comfort zone. And changing my expectations, I don't think changes that voice or that conversation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think it changes the voice, but it changes your discomfort whenever
Sure.
when what the voice is spoken doesn't come to be, right? Because we weren't doing the proper actions or didn't have the communication of those expectations. So I agree. At the same time, again, I think we let loose of those in order to feel cozy and
Sure.
comfortable. And that becomes it brings people down and keeps them from living up to their full potential.
So I do want to, if we can, I want to get to the point where we're helping our listeners or equipping our listeners on changing their expectations, resetting expectations, that kind of thing. But what other points did you find interesting as you researched this topic, came up with it, and put a class together?
Well, there were a lot of really interesting points. Some of them I won't share, but if you want to read if you're one of those people who likes to read all the details about expectations, I actually listened to a book called The Expectation Effects by David Robinson. And it really, there's a lot of pieces of it. And then another book that I was listening to, The Power of Neuroplasticity by Shad Helmstetter, that kind of struck me, right? Because it seems to be kind of on the vein that I'm listening to right now is, right, how do you change your thinking to get better results, right? Because I'm the person who always wants to do it faster, better, quicker, whatever. And if we can help other people to do things, to get to success more quickly and with fewer bumps in the road,
right?
That's again always my point. But again, I mean, really, the first thing, if I'm going to get a doctor better results, is okay. Well, what are you expecting from your patients? And I find it really interesting that because of life experiences, because of maybe past experiences with patients, because of garbage, right, that we've picked up and carried along with us along the way, from well-meaning professors or parents, or really just maybe things that we formed in our own mind, we can gain really poor expectations of what really even patients want out of a chiropractic experience. If we have the expectation that every patient that comes in, they don't really want to pay for care, and all they want is a quick pop and they're out the door. And if I recommend the very best and what this patient really needs, that I'm gonna get a bad reputation, or they're gonna think I'm all about money and all these different things. Unfortunately, if we have that expectation, it changes your behavior.
And not for the better.
No. Yeah. And it changes the way that you view that patient and the things that they're saying. And it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that everybody does think that you're all about money, because that's how you're viewing everything. When we know that, again, if you have the best expectations, which is that, the patient didn't wait. The studies show, right, that patients wait 2 to 3 years before they ever set foot in your door. And then, so they're going to wait 2 or 3 years and then make an appointment because they didn't have anything else to do, but sit in your office for 30 minutes to an hour, all because they don't want what you have.
Yeah, right. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah. And they don't want to get better and they don't value their health. I mean, I really feel like we're kidding ourselves. So I think really setting the expectation of what a patient actually is, what a new patient actually is really important. And really resetting that expectation that no, every patient that walks in this door as a new patient really wants to be a lifetime wellness chiropractic patient. They may not know it yet, but they do want the results that being a lifetime wellness chiropractic patient who stays, pays, refers, and has a good time doing it yields. Is a good first starting point.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, you laid a bunch of really good right through there. That's listeners. That's worth rewinding on this podcast and listening to again. That last, because she said some things very quickly, but they were very, very in depth. Not to be sadistic, I almost wish every chiropractic student would go through a very significant health challenge in their life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people who are attracted to chiropractic work on themselves, right? They respect their body and they try to take care of it and they want to live healthy and then, they're wired this way or this is the way they grew up or whatever. They're not dealing with the stuff that our patients have dealt with. They have no idea the emotional toll, the physical toll, the mental toll, right? The concern and the worry about the future and all the stress that goes into that. And if you're listening to this and you've had one of those significant health uncertainties in your life, it completely rewires your expectation of why people are seeking care out. Right?
Yeah, I think it can. And I think then you can also get that really upside down and backwards too, right? Sure. We look at the old timers in chiropractic, and we look at our mentor, Dr. Owen. Dr. Owen had cross eyes at one point, right? And it was an adjustment, a series of adjustments that got his vision back on track, and then when he was a teenager, his intestines weren't working like they were supposed to. And then again, got adjusted and that changed everything for him. I had my own personal chiropractic story. When I was a patient, I had pain running down my arm when I ran and, I didn't know the chiropractic could help it, but I had urinary tract infections about once a month and they'd stick around. And I'd take the antibiotics and they just came back. And, the medical doctor had told me that I was just actually his staph. Why would I ask his staph? I don't know. But his staff told me I was just prone and this is the way it was going to be.
You were built with bad parts.
Yep. I was the broken toy. Misfit, built for the land of misfit toys. Right. But, it was through finding chiropractic that I really broke free of those things and saw the path to not just better health right then, but better health for life, and wanted to be able to give that to everyone else. And that value, it's really if you think about it, I think that's where we miss the boat, right? We as chiropractors can get so not empathetic, right, but sympathetic to other people and put themselves in our own financial position that our expectations are still not proper of what we are supposed to be for that patient and what we're supposed to be giving. Yeah. So we look at that, and even though we expect they're going to get great results and that it's going to be life-changing for them, we go, but I want them to have it so badly that there's no way that they could probably afford what they actually need as far as care goes. Right. And if I really told them what they needed because Joe Smith down the street's not telling them about it, or, Bob Jones is not giving proper recommendation, or they're going somewhere where they're getting, they never have an x-ray and they get a $26 adjustment and are never confronted about when their next appointment is, right? They're making their own schedule. Then they never really understand and they don't understand the value. And we go, oh, well, they're not going to get it from me either. Well, I can tell you, if you don't ever tell them, again, that's self-fulfilling prophecy. they're never going to get it.
Right.
They'll never understand the value of the absolute life change that it is to be a lifetime wellness chiropractic patient.
So, unfortunately, bad expectations, poor expectations, low expectations are all around us.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, they are poured into us maybe even before we realize what's going on.
Sure.
So, if you have parents, if you have siblings, if you have uncles, and if you have friends and teachers, and if you have media, and if you have alone time with your own thoughts, chances are you have had some very medium to low or no expectations poured inside of you.
Yeah, well, and the no expectations comes from having an expectation, right? And not communicating it. So getting a bad result and then going, oh, well, I might as well just go ahead and take that away, take that expectation out so that I don't get rejected again, right? So yeah, it's definitely a problem, a big problem.
I think you mentioned that in the class. I think you mentioned that if you have expectations, but you don't communicate those to the people around you, if you don't tell your patients what your expectations are, or your staff or whoever, then how can they possibly live up to those expectations?
Yeah, they certainly can't. And again, I think it's that frustration, that tension between expectations and how clearly we communicate it that really is that's the frustration point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we could just figure out, how do I actually clearly how do I tell my patient that I expect them to be a lifetime wellness chiropractic patient who stays, pays, refers, and loves every minute of it?
Sure.
That is the problem.
Right.
Because we're a society that's taught really not to communicate those things. Again, communication's been removed. Correct communication, direct communication has been removed from a lot of our social landscapes.
Would you agree that you can have that expectation, but you still have to communicate it the right way and understandable? I mean, that's part of the mentorship you provide, is teaching people to bridge. These are the expectations. This is how you communicate that expectations to the people to give them a chance to live up to it, right?
Yeah, to give them a chance to make a good decision.
There you go.
But if you never give them a chance to make a good decision because you're afraid to tell them what they really need, then it definitely causes problems with the patient altogether. And you're never going to get a lifetime wellness chiropractic patient that way, right?
You know how hard that is to hear? That I have made my patient's decision for them because I have been afraid, or I don't know how to communicate my expectations. That's very convicting. And that's very convicting for a lot of chiropractors that I know, because at the end of the day, they really are motivated at their core by helping other people.
Yeah.
So, wow, that hurts.
Well, even I remember back my first few years of practice, how uncomfortable that was, because I was in my hometown, and my thought was, if I give them news about the seriousness of their condition, they're not going to like me. And the realization was, right, that if I don't, they're going to not like me a lot more later whenever they find out that the joint's fused from someone else. If I don't tell them that they have a serious condition now that's progressive, their disdain for me is going to be far greater later than it will be at the moment when I have to give them some news which is not as good as what I'd like. I've all day long, I'd love to give great news. Right? But the fact of the matter is, they didn't come to me because they had great things happening in their life. They came to me because they were out of control of their health and their health situation.
And their future.
Yep. And they needed someone to guide them, someone to take control of that and guide them in the right direction. And if I didn't do it, who was going to?
I believe our mentor said they are looking for someone to treat it as seriously as they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So expectations are out there. There's different levels of expectations. think we've all got some work to do on resetting and being able to communicate. How would somebody hearing this for the first time take steps towards improving their expectations or learning how to communicate expectations, maybe for the first time?
Yeah, I think really the first thing is just paying attention to what you're expecting from. Like, do you even have any expectations? When you walk in with a patient, when a patient calls on the phone, when, when you're in your consultation, when you're in your exam, when you're in your report of findings, if you're going over a plan of care with them, what are you expecting from them? What are you expecting from them every visit? What are you expecting from them when they're not even in your office? Are you expecting anything? And then if you are, what are you expecting? And if it's anything less than, well, yeah, they're out there saying great things about us all the time because we are really giving the best, recommending the best, and expecting the best. Then the fourth part of our oath, right, is let the chips fall where they may, right? They still have decisions that they have to make based on their life,
right,
and their circumstances and their whatever, right, that you can't control. But if you're not first giving the best and recommending the best and expecting the best, then you can't just go, well, that was their decision. And take that responsibility off of yourself. So anyway, the first thing I would say is, okay, do you have expectations? Number one. Number two, if yes, then look at what they are.
Right. Are they even healthy? Are they proper? Are they
healthy? Are they positive, or are they negative? If they're negative, I'd tell you you're going to want to set those right a different direction. Have you even sat down and thought about what would be the very best outcome of a patient interaction? Every kind of patient interaction that you have, what are you expecting to happen on the other side of that?
Right.
And then once you have that expectation, once you've reset it to something really great, then how do I communicate that to the patient? And I'll be honest with you, that's probably the hard part for people, but it's also the easiest thing because you just say it. It's not hard to say to a patient, you know what, Mrs. Jones, I expect that you're going to get really awesome results here. And when you do, I expect that you're going to tell a lot of people about it. You're going to be that person who wants to push, pull, and drag people in here to get their lives, to see if we can get their lives saved and changed just like yours.
Of course, you actually have said that to people. That's what you say to people. Sure. What's the response from patients when you say that to them? Have you ever had somebody say, well, I'm not getting any results, or I don't want that? I mean, what's the general response from patients when you lay that kind of expectations on them?
Yeah, I hope so too.
See, isn't that wonderful?
Action, reaction.
There
right?
it is. There it is. Yeah. So what else do we need to do to reset, rethink, and recreate our expectations?
I mean, I wish it were a lot harder than that, but I think those are the
gist of it.
The main steps.
And if somebody is like, they can't even get to these basic steps, they need to reach out.
Yeah, for sure.
They need to find somebody who can mentor them, help them. No?
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just thinking though, that there's a lot of people that just think, well, not in my town. Well, not my patients.
That is true.
Well, it's different here. And I would just challenge you that, I mean, if you're looking across the country, my practice can't do that, right? I mean, you'll get the exact result that brings. But the truth is, if you really look at the truth of the matter, people are doing amazing things in this profession. They're getting miraculous results still with chiropractic patients, still with chiropractic only, still by doing just adjustments. And you can be successful in chiropractic practice. You can be proficient. You can be productive, and you can be profitable, wildly profitable, all the while doing what is best for that patient. And again, I think first you have to know that that's happening somewhere, like be really honest with yourself.
Right.
Other people are doing it. And then the question is, if they're doing it, why can't I?
I love that. I've been doing this 20 years, and I have encountered multiple times where someone has taken over an office, purchased an office, been in a town where another person was, whatever. And, that other doctor, well, people in this area, blank or whatever. I just had this a few days ago. A guy that I'm working with is kind of new with me. His name's Dr. Randy. He's in South Carolina. Really, really good guy. And he purchased a clinic from a doctor who was, that doctor probably should have retired years ago, but purchased the clinic. And his encouraging word as he was out the door, after the sale was, well, people don't go for gimmicks in this area, right? And now Dr. Randy has been kind of working through that very offhanded, no expectation, low expectation kind of thing. With fear, like, well, maybe I can't rock the boat too much. Maybe I need to be slow in my transition. And of course, my advice to him is do what you're supposed to do. Let the chips fall. We're going to have more winners than we will losers. And he just presented his first official plan that was written out with a schedule and a financial, and it went great for him. Right? But there was that expectation from the previous doc, which really wasn't a truism for Dr. Randy. It was true for that doctor who was leaving, though, because that's what he brought to the table. Yeah,
I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jason Ross, who actually just broke through some philosophical barriers that he's been having. He was really afraid to really see people 3 times a week and all this kind of thing. But this last few weeks, he had lots of really serious conditions come in, and he was not afraid to say, look, you need to be here every day. You've already had surgery on, T2 or T12 to S2 or whatever. And look, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to be a hard road, but, this is what you need. Again, said it with reckless abandon, followed through with it. Patients not only accepted that, but they were appreciative of it. And his mind was completely blown that they're actually getting better results with their very serious conditions than a lot of his patients that he wasn't giving the frequency of care. And now he's like, okay, it's time to do what I know is, or what I thought I should do, but now I know that it's time to move ahead. So super proud of you, Dr. Ross. Keep up the good work.
I think we ought to give one to Dr. Aaron Tolbert as well. He was walking that walk about, there's this person in my town doing $20 adjustments, and I'm going to do something more comprehensive and more structured, and how's that going to work? And the normal, of course, you're new to chiropractic, you're new to this business. There's a lot of stuff you're sifting through. And then we just heard recently that other chiropractor who's doing the $20 adjustments is now sending him patients, Dr. Tolbert patients, because Dr. Tolbert is doing something more comprehensive, better. And I don't know what the relationship is with that other doctor and those patients, but that's fascinating. It's fascinating. And we mentioned just that thing earlier in this podcast about that dynamic. So, great conversation. I wish we had more time to cover more ground with it. If someone is listening and they're like, I need extra help with this, how would they get in touch with you? Do you have an email address or something that somebody, go ahead.
Yeah, they can email me at thorrall, HORRALL at amcfamily.com.
thorrall at amcfamily.com.
Yeah, one more time. THORRALL at amcfamily.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You're a returning guest. I hope to have you on in the future as well. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing you, and you hearing us next week. God bless.
Can't wait to hear your success story too.
There you go. Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course, and we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag at amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required. And we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.